There's something inside you that most people have never even heard of, but it's always been there, waiting to be awakened. This something is called the Merkaba, a real energy field, a light structure that connects your physical body to your spiritual essence. The Merkaba isn't some modern theory. It's been mentioned in Egyptian, Hebrew, and Eastern traditions for thousands of years. It's always been described as a sacred vehicle that allows humans to transcend the limits of matter and access higher dimensions of consciousness. The very name reveals its power. Mer means light, Ka is spirit, and Ba is body. When these forces align, you activate an inner vessel capable of transforming your life on every level. And here's the most important part. The secret of the Merkaba was never accessible to just anyone. It only reveals itself to those who are truly ready to awaken. If you feel like this message reached you for a bigger reason, it's because your calling has already begun. Stick with me till the end, because today you'll understand why the Merkaba is the lost key to true spirituality, and how activating it can change not just your life, but your entire reality. Man is a lit star, carrying within himself the heavens and the earth. Imagine a time when humans still remembered who they were, when wisdom wasn't trapped in hard-to-read books or hidden behind religious hierarchies. It was something lived, a knowledge passed from soul to soul, in temples, secret rituals, and nights under the stars. The Merkaba was part of that heritage, a secret so sacred it couldn't be handed over to just anyone. That's why the ancient mysteries, like the rites of Demeter, the Orphic teachings, and Egyptian rituals, passed this truth on in silence, almost like a whisper traveling through generations. There were no manuals, no lectures, only practice, living example, and the gaze of a master into the eyes of a disciple. Because the Merkaba isn't something taught like a formula, it's something awakened. But that connection started getting smothered. As the world plunged into wars, the fall of empires, and the rise of religions that needed to dominate bodies and minds, the Merkaba was slowly erased from collective memory. Because a human being aware of their light vehicle is a free human being, and a free being doesn't bow, doesn't obey without questioning, doesn't accept being chained in the name of dogmas. The forgetting wasn't an accident, it was a project. For centuries, anything that touched on inner knowledge was hunted, discredited, destroyed. The brutal force of inquisitions, the fires of burnings, systematic repression didn't just wipe out lives. They wiped out memories. Every book burned, every public execution of heretics, every silenced voice helped build a world where the Merkaba would become just a distant echo, almost impossible to reach. And so, whole generations arose without even knowing that a living energy field surrounded their bodies. Generations who believed they were nothing more than flesh and bones, forgetting that inside them they carried the map to touch the divine. The most tragic thing is that many, without even knowing, still feel that calling. You know that emptiness nothing can fill. That sense that something's missing even when everything seems to be in place. That's the Merkaba trying to awaken. It's your very being remembering that once, long before books, before churches, before crowns and empires you knew. And that's why, even fragmented, even hidden, the calling never died. But not everyone forgot. While most of humanity sank into forgetting, small circles of initiates kept the memory of true transformation alive. They were called alchemists, but not the way history books tell it. They weren't just scholars trying to turn base metals into physical gold. That was just the cover. The great truth was hidden under symbols, riddles, and cryptic formulas. True alchemy was spiritual. For real alchemists, lead was the sleeping mind, heavy, dense, trapped in the illusions of matter. And gold was awakened consciousness, the being who had transcended human limitations, lit up their inner light, and reconnected with their divine origin. And here came the best-kept secret, the Merkaba. The Merkaba was the invisible tool that made this transmutation possible. Without it, no true elevation could happen. Without it, the great work, the alchemical process of purification, integration, and ascension remained incomplete. The alchemists knew that the body, mind, and spirit needed to be aligned like gears of a cosmic clock. They knew that dense matter could be transcended, but not through magic formulas or lab experiments. The true journey was internal. It was in the silence of the heart and the expansion of consciousness that the lead of the soul was melted, shaped, and transformed into living light. And the Merkaba was the vehicle of this process. A living energy field that, once awakened, allowed the alchemist to cross subtle planes, access higher sources of wisdom, dissolve old patterns, and be reborn into a new state of being. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't imagination. It was real. It was soul science, practiced long before modern books ever existed. For them, every true prayer, every deep meditation, every sacred ritual was another step toward activating the Merkaba. They weren't seeking external wealth, they were seeking inner mastery. The true philosopher's stone was never a physical object. It was always a state of being. The being who awakens their light, activates their Merkaba, and becomes a conscious creator of reality. The spiritualist's vision, who they are, and how they recognize the calling. And so, while most of humanity sank into forgetfulness, there were still those who, in silence, held on to an ancient memory, something that couldn't be explained, taught, or imposed. It was a feeling that surfaced without warning, like a forgotten memory waking up from deep within the soul. These are the spiritualists. Don't confuse spiritualism with formal religion. It's not about following rules, repeating rituals, or blindly obeying a tradition. Being a spiritualist goes way beyond that. It's knowing, even without proof, even without guarantees, that there's something more. That what we see with our eyes isn't everything. That there's an invisible intelligence weaving the fabric of life. That there's an eternal flame pulsing inside of us, even if the world tries to snuff it out. A spiritualist is someone who feels the calling when they look up at the sky, who feels a lump in their throat without knowing why when they hear certain songs, who senses the sacred in the smell of wet earth, in the whisper of the wind, in the silence between their own heartbeats. Even without knowing its name, they know they're connected to something greater, and that something greater has always been trying to wake them up. And it's exactly this invisible thread, this intuition burning like a silent ember, that guides the spiritualist back to the path of the Merkaba. They don't need complicated formulas. They don't need to be convinced. They just feel it. At some point, inevitably, the calling becomes too strong to ignore. And then, without even realizing it, they start searching. They start remembering. They start piecing together bit by bit the map that leads them home. Let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. They say that in a village surrounded by ancient forests, a boy named Elior was born. Since he was little, Elior wasn't like the other children. While everyone played and got distracted, he would sit alone on top of the hills, gazing at the stars with an unexplainable longing. It was as if he knew, without ever being taught, that something up there was waiting for him. One day, wandering aimlessly, Elior came across an old man standing under the shade of a tree. The elder seemed to be waiting. Without saying a word, he reached out his hand and placed in Elior's palm a crystal that shone even under the daylight. "This," he said, "is what you've always been." Elior looked at the crystal, felt his heart pound harder, but didn't fully understand. Even so, he kept that gift as if he were guarding something sacred. Time went by. Life tried to shape him, distract him, pull him away. But in every hardship, in every emptiness, in every night where tears fell for no reason, Elior remembered. There was something inside him made of light, and even without knowing exactly how or when, he knew that one day that light would awaken. This little story carries a powerful lesson, because deep down, we're all like Elior. We all carry a sleeping crystal inside our chest, but few are the ones who hear the call. Few are the ones who resist the pressure of the world and follow the silent voice of the soul. And it's those few who, at some point on the journey, find the Merkaba again, not as an idea, but as a living reality pulsing within them. The hidden key, the role of light and sacred geometry in awakening. Have you ever noticed how everything in the universe seems to follow perfect patterns? The spiral of a seashell, the shape of a galaxy, the arrangement of a flower's petals, the design of your own DNA. Nothing is random. Behind all creation, there's an invisible intelligence, a living architecture that supports every atom of matter and every beam of light. This intelligence manifests through sacred geometry, an ancient language that true alchemists knew very well and that holds the secret of the Merkaba. Sacred geometry isn't just aesthetic beauty, it's the alphabet the universe was written with. Every line, every angle, every shape carries a specific vibration, and these vibrations shape the reality you experience. It's as if the universe were a vast poem of light, and each geometric shape was a word full of creative power. The Merkaba is one of those words, and not just any word, it's one of the most powerful. Formed by two interlocking tetrahedrons spinning in opposite directions, the Merkaba creates a toroidal energy field around the body. This field isn't symbolic, it's real, and it has the ability to protect, expand consciousness, and allow navigation between dimensions. It's the soul's vehicle of light, and this is where the direct connection to alchemy begins. Because when we hear that alchemists wanted to turn lead into gold, that was never the full story. Lead represents dense consciousness, trapped by the limitations of matter, fear, and ignorance. Gold symbolizes awakened consciousness, free, luminous, capable of operating in the higher realms of being. The real alchemical transmutation has always been internal transformation, the vibrational elevation of the human being. And what was the secret tool that made this transformation possible? The Merkaba. The alchemists didn't just manipulate external substances, they worked deeply on themselves. They understood that the outer universe was just a mirror of the inner universe. They knew the human body was a sacred laboratory where consciousness could be refined until it reached its purest form, light. And the Merkaba was the great agent of this inner alchemy. Activating the Merkaba means aligning body, mind, and spirit with the original matrix of creation. It means awakening the light vehicle that's dormant within every human being. Without this awakening, the great work, the ultimate goal of spiritual alchemy, could not be completed. But why is this so fundamental? Because light is the raw material of creation. Everything that exists is, ultimately, made of light vibrating at different frequencies. When you activate your Merkaba, you reconnect your consciousness to your true luminous essence. You start operating, not just in the dense plane of matter, but also in the subtle levels where realities are shaped. In simple terms, while most people live as prisoners of external circumstances, the alchemist who awakens their Merkaba becomes a conscious co-creator of their reality. True spirituality, the kind that transcends religions, dogmas, and empty rituals, has always taught this. Spirituality is not about running away from the world. It's not about disconnecting from life. It's about awakening to the fact that life is energy organized according to divine principles and that you are an active part of that organization. This is where light, sacred geometry, and the Merkaba meet at the heart of the spiritual journey. Light is the essence. Sacred geometry is the blueprint. The Merkaba is the vehicle. When you awaken the Merkaba, you activate in yourself the ability to be conscious light in motion, expressing harmony, wisdom, and power in every action. You don't just intellectually understand that you're part of the whole, you feel it, you live it, you become it. And this transformation doesn't happen outside of you. It's not something someone else can give you. It's not a blessing that comes from outside. It's a reunion with what you've always been, but that got hidden by forgetfulness, disconnection, and the noise of the modern world. This is true initiation, true rebirth, true transmutation. And now, with this knowledge in your hands, the invitation is clear. It's not enough to just understand this as a beautiful theory. You need to activate it, feel it, live it. Because as long as the Merkaba is just a concept, it stays asleep. But when it becomes a living reality within you, your entire field of experience changes. And that, as the ancient alchemists knew, is the true masterpiece of the soul, transforming yourself into conscious light. For a long time, talking about the mind's ability to shape reality seemed like something only mystics, alchemists, and visionaries believed. For centuries, this wisdom was discredited, treated like superstition or fantasy. But truth has a curious power. It never completely disappears. And now, even modern science, unwillingly, is being forced to recognize what the ancient masters already knew. At the beginning of the 20th century, an experiment forever changed the way we understand reality, the famous double-slit experiment. Scientists wanted to figure out how light behaved. Was it a wave or a particle? The answer should have been simple, but what they discovered was so disturbing that it still challenges the brightest minds today. When no one was watching, the light behaved like a wave, spreading out in unpredictable patterns. But the moment someone looked, the exact instant the light was measured, it changed. It stopped being a wave and became a particle, as if somehow the simple act of observing created reality. Think about that for a second. It's not the outside world that determines what you see. It's your consciousness that shapes what exists. This phenomenon is called the collapse of the wave function, and it shows undeniably that reality isn't fixed. Matter isn't a rigid structure independent of your perception. Matter is vibrational information, malleable, that organizes itself according to the focus of your consciousness. And this is where what the ancient masters taught becomes crystal clear. They said the mind is a creator, that reality is an extension of the internal state of being. That light obeys conscious intention, that the entire universe is a dance of vibrations, with consciousness as the great conductor. And the Merkaba, where does it fit into this? The Merkaba is, in practice, the instrument that allows this conscious manipulation of reality to happen in a powerful, pure, and harmonious way. When the Merkaba is activated, it generates a high-frequency electromagnetic field around the body. This field can interact directly with the energetic web of the universe. It not only protects and elevates your consciousness, but also acts as an amplifier of your power to collapse waves into particles, to transform invisible potentials into concrete experiences. It's as if the Merkaba were a bridge between the quantum field of infinite possibilities and real manifestation in your life. Without it, the ordinary mind is like a weak flashlight trying to light up the vastness of the universe. But with an awakened Merkaba, consciousness becomes like a radiant sun, capable of organizing reality itself around your deepest intention. That's why the ancient alchemists didn't rely only on physical instruments. They understood that the true alchemical operation happened in the mind and the energetic field. They knew that human consciousness, when aligned with universal laws, has the power to bend reality like a hand molding clay. And all of this is proven today by quantum physics itself. The particles that form you, your body, your emotions, your thoughts, everything is, in fact, energy vibrating at different levels of density. You're made of organized light, and this light responds to your consciousness, just like the light in the double-slit experiment responded to the simple observation of the scientists. When you activate your Merkaba, you're not just tapping into an ancient spiritual tool. You're operating directly within the vibrational architecture of the universe. You're no longer a passive observer. You become an active co-creator of your existence. How to activate the Merkaba? Essential practices of modern alchemists. Understanding the power of the Merkaba is just the beginning. The real leap happens when you decide to activate it consciously. And for that, the ancient alchemists and spiritual masters left us very specific practices, passed down through the centuries as keys to transformation. They knew that activating the Merkaba wasn't a gift reserved for a few, but a natural ability of every human being who chooses to walk the path of awakened consciousness. It all starts with the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. This triad is the foundation of activation. If even one of these aspects is out of sync, the Merkaba field stays dormant, functioning weakly and unconsciously without revealing its true potential. The first step is geometric visualization meditation. It's not just ordinary meditation where the goal is simple relaxation. Here, the objective is much deeper, to clearly visualize two interconnected tetrahedrons, one pointing upward and the other downward, spinning in opposite directions around your body. Picture these structures made of pure light, shining brightly, spinning with majestic smoothness. This mental image isn't just symbolic. When done consciously and consistently, it starts to reprogram your energy field, aligning your physical body with the sacred geometry structure that sustains all creation. But visualization alone isn't enough. It's necessary to integrate rhythmic breathing, a practice modern alchemists call the 18-cycle breath. Breathing consciously, holding the breath, and then releasing it in very specific patterns creates an internal frequency that activates the harmonic spin of the Merkaba. This breathing technique is a practical way to calibrate the body's energy field, allowing it to vibrate in tune with higher dimensions. Spiritual science teaches that every breath carries a vibrational frequency. That's why many masters recommend using the 528 Hz frequency during the practice, known as the frequency of unconditional love. When you meditate, breathe consciously, and bathe in this frequency, your light field naturally begins to expand. The 528 Hz acts as a catalyst, reorganizing the particles of your energy and making the conscious activation of the Merkaba easier. Another crucial point that both ancient and modern alchemists always emphasized is the purification of the physical body. You can't sustain a high vibration field in a toxic body, and here, it's not just about eating a basic healthy diet, but about eating living, vibrational food, fresh fruits, raw vegetables, pure water, foods that carry the energy of the sun and earth. These living foods strengthen the light body because they carry, in their structure, natural geometric patterns that resonate with the sacred geometry of the Merkaba. Vibrational consciousness goes beyond just what you eat. It also involves the thoughts you nourish, the emotions you cultivate, and the environments you stay in. Activating the Merkaba is a process of inner refinement. Every choice, every word, every intention needs to be observed as a vibrational seed that either strengthens or disrupts your field. The ancient alchemists saw all of this as part of the great work. For them, the transformation of lead into gold was, in reality, the elevation of a dense and unconscious being into an enlightened and awakened one, capable of creating with light. And the Merkaba was the chariot of ascension, the vehicle that made this journey back to the true divine origin possible. Today, even with all modern technology, the principles remain the same. No external tool replaces the internal work. No magic technique overrides the daily commitment to one's own awakening. That's why activating the Merkaba is more than a spiritual practice. It's a life choice. When body, mind, and spirit dance together in the harmony of conscious breathing, in the purity of living foods, in the vibration of unconditional love, and in the visualization of sacred light, the Merkaba doesn't just activate. It's reborn. It blooms as the living expression of your true nature. Real changes in the body and soul. Activating the Merkaba is like lighting a sacred fire within yourself, but like any flame, it needs to be fed to keep burning bright. The truth is, the initial awakening is just the beginning of the journey. Without discipline, the vibrational field of the Merkaba weakens, disperses, and falls back asleep into the deeper layers of unconsciousness. That's why true spiritualists know the work doesn't end at activation. It deepens. Keeping the Merkaba active requires a daily choice. It's not a sporadic practice you do only when you have time or when life gets tough. It's a living commitment, renewed every morning, with every conscious breath, with every decision to align with what is true, beautiful, and eternal. The first essential tool is daily meditation, but not just any kind of meditation. It's the practice of entering the silent space where the Merkaba spins, where the tetrahedrons of light dance in harmony, where the physical body, mind, and soul merge into a single movement. Visualizing this spin isn't just imagining it. It's tuning your consciousness to the true vibrational architecture that connects us to the whole. The second practice is the continuous expansion of compassion. The energy of compassion acts as the subtle fuel that feeds the light field. Every genuine act of kindness, every thought of unconditional love, every intention of healing and service to others strengthens the Merkaba and keeps it spinning with speed and stability. Everything matters. Every thought you allow, every emotion you welcome, every intention you send out directly shapes the quality of your light field. The Merkaba is sensitive to your inner frequency. If you feed resentment, fear, or judgment, it slows down. If you cultivate gratitude, trust, and presence, it expands. That's why, for true spiritualists, practice is not separate from life. Every moment is an opportunity to strengthen the light vehicle. Every challenge is a chance to choose the highest vibration. Every interaction is a mirror of your own vibrational state. Part 9. What happens after activation? Real changes in body and soul. When the Merkaba awakens actively and sustainably, profound changes begin to happen. And they're not subtle changes. They're transformations you feel in your skin, in your soul, in the pulse of life itself. The first thing you notice is a natural expansion of consciousness. Suddenly, you start seeing beyond appearances. Situations that used to trigger anxiety or fear lose their power to affect you. You feel an inner space opening up, a serene clarity that isn't rational but visceral. It's like seeing life from above, with the vision of a spiritual eagle. Your energetic sensitivity also amplifies. You begin to perceive energy fields in places, people, and situations. Your body becomes a fine instrument, capable of picking up subtle frequencies, sensing when something vibrates in harmony or dissonance with your field. Intuition blooms like never before. It stops being a confused whisper and becomes a clear, firm, loving guidance. You feel when to move forward, when to step back, when to stay still, when to act. Not driven by fear or doubt anymore, but guided by a silent force that comes from within. Another impressive effect is the natural protection against negative fields. With the Merkaba activated, your inner light creates a vibrational barrier that repels dense energies. It's not that challenges disappear, but they can no longer penetrate your inner structure like before. You become like a deeply rooted tree. Even when strong winds blow, you stay firm, anchored in your truth. And maybe the most beautiful thing of all, you start living in flow. Coincidences become frequent. What you need comes to you effortlessly. The right people cross your path. Doors open. Life stops feeling like a battle and becomes a cosmic dance where every step you take is guided by the greater intelligence of creation. Part 10. The Greater Mission. Why awakening the Merkaba changes humanity's destiny. But this transformation isn't just personal. Every being who activates their Merkaba becomes like an invisible sun, radiating light to the entire collective field of Earth. Today, we live at a critical moment in human history, a turning point where the old frequency of separation, pain, and fear needs to give way to a new vibration of unity, love, and expanded consciousness, and every awakened soul is a living anchor for this new reality. When you activate your Merkaba, you're not just transforming your own life, you are actively participating in the transmutation of planetary consciousness. You become an alchemist of the new era, carrying out the true great work, the elevation of the collective, the healing of the human unconscious, and the reconnection of Earth to its divine nature. The ancient masters knew this. They hid this knowledge in symbols, myths, and secret practices because they knew humanity would need to rediscover it at the right time, and that time is now. The Merkaba is not just a personal light field, it's a portal between worlds, a living bridge that connects matter to spirit, human to divine, visible to invisible. It's the reminder that we are more than passing bodies. We are eternal sparks of creation, sailing through the stars by conscious light. And as more souls awaken, the old world crumbles faster. The new earth rises faster, an earth where there's no more separation between the sacred and the everyday, where life is recognized as a living expression of divine consciousness, where every human being remembers who they are, a creator, a guardian, a dancer in the eternal symphony of the universe. And before you go, pay close attention. A special video has been prepared for you to continue this awakening journey and dive even deeper into what we started here. Just click on the video that's appearing on the screen now. I'll see you there so we can take the next step together.